It's not getting it.
All right, so on to actually the topic that we were going to have before we realized that Muhammad Ali passed, and that is, what is the best, worst, funniest, or most creative punishment you ever got as a child?
Let me lead with that one.
Okay, Big Dad.
Because we're talking about how Ali got in his opponent's heads. My father was this master of it. So I get in trouble, which I did a lot. And my mother would say, "Your dad's coming home." So she started off the psychology of it. So we'd get home, and they'd go in the kitchen, they'd talk a little bit, and it'd be time for dinner, we'd sit down for dinner. And my father would look at me, he says, "Take your belt off, boy. Coil it up and put it on the table in front of you." So I'd have to take my belt off and put that right in front of me. And we'd sit there and eat, and he'd look at me, and I always had a bad habit to put my elbow up there, and he'd take a fork and jab me with it. I think I still have the scars on my elbow from it. Did not put your elbow on the table in front of my father, was a bad idea. So you eat as slow as you can. My dad would eat fast, and I ate fast. I ate as slow as I can. He said, "All right, you done eating?" "Yes, sir." "Go back to your room." So I go back to my room. He just 10 minutes wouldn't hear a thing. Then I hear him walking down the hallway. Then he'd walk back and he'd smack that doorknob and walk back. I might have 4 or 5 minutes go by. He'd walk by, scratch the door a little bit, go on by. Then he'd come by with the belt, popping it. So then he'd open up the door, and you're just sitting there, and you just, whoa, 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 whoa. You're totally broke down by this point. And, bend over, grab your ankles, pat, pat, pat about 3 times. You didn't even have to hurt me, you know.
Oh, that's funny.
And it was just terrible.
Yeah, he had your mind messed up.
He had my mind totally messed up. Now, probably the most creative punishment I ever got, I was in 3rd grade. And Mrs. Pollock was my teacher. And she had polio. A lot of people in my day when I was a kid had still had a lot of effects from polio.
Yeah,
Some people leg braces and arms gone. Polio was just an unbelievably vicious disease that somebody like Brian, I don't think you could even understand what that was at that time. Us guys that are older, we saw people with that. And I, as usual, was actually up in class, and she took me behind the curtain in the gymnasium, and she had a paddle. Everybody had paddles. Coaches had paddles. Everybody had paddles. And you got paddled in school.
Oh yeah.
All right. Nowadays, that would probably get you thrown in jail, which is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
That's why they have problems. And Mrs. Pollock hit me 3 times, because she wasn't very strong, of course, and I turned around and grinned at her. And there was a chair up there. She said, "Sit down." And she came back 10 minutes later with Mr. Lindsay.
Oh.
Mr. Lindsay was the rather large black janitor in our school. And his son was in class with me, okay? Mr. Lindsay lifted me 3 times.
Wow.
Yeah, he hit me hard.
Wow.
And I went back to class. I mean, my butt hurt for days after that.
That's kind of funny that, like, back in that time,
They can get
janitors,
anybody to
yeah,
whip.
anyone could whip
and
your
not only
ass.
that, this we're talking, I'm in 3rd grade. That's 66, I'm 67. So, this is a black janitor spanked the white boy.
Yeah.
Think about this.
Yeah.
That's tough. Now, I promise you, I would walk down the hallway and Mr. Lindsay would be there, and I'd say, "Hello, sir, Mr. Lindsay." I called him Mr. Lindsay from then on.
Right.
I had total respect for Mr. Lindsay.
Yeah, exactly.
And Mr. Lindsay looked at me and said, "Good morning, David," or "Good afternoon, David." He knew my name and just been very respectful to me. Nothing was ever said. Nothing was ever done. But Mrs. Pollock certainly got the, do you think my parents would have even said anything? Oh, hell no.
No.
No. They said that boy got what he had coming to him. The funniest one was, I was 4 years old, and we had moved back to Paola, Kansas from western Kansas. Dad took his first couple of pharmacy jobs after he graduated from KU out to western Kansas, Liberal and Quinta, a couple of little towns way out in the middle of nowhere. And we came back to Paola, we moved into my great-grandfather's house who had recently passed. And I was underneath the porch, and I was lighting matches. I'm 4 or 5 years old. And a man in the station wagon stopped at the stop sign down there and sat there for a long time. He spotted me. Next thing I know, he comes walking up the doorstep and knocks on the door and gets my mother. Oh boy, that wasn't good either.
I bet you it was.
Mama took care of me that time.
I bet you it was.
Didn't have to wait for Dad. No, Mom had me on that one.
See, and nowadays people just drive by, they're like, oh, look, that kid's playing with fire, and they just keep going. Like,
Yep.
you know, there's that, you've lost that sense of community.
But the real funniest one is the lady who lived behind us had tulips. And I went over and picked her tulips one day. And I had to go apologize to her. Oh, that was the worst thing that ever happened to me, I thought. I could go on forever, but those are the few that come to the top of my head.
What about you, Chris?
Similar to you, we had my mom's family, they had some money when they were growing up, and they had a lot of kids, and so my mom's mom died at a very young age. The nanny came and lived with us, so she'd been with her family for years. Lula Mae Brown was her name, and she was just the toughest woman I've ever run across in my life. And she would take this incredibly thick wooden hairbrush and do it on the back of your calf. Oh. And it was brutal.
Yeah.
The back of the brush or the bristles?
No.
back
The
of
back of the brush?
Back of the brush.
Every time.
And I'm going to guess, as one of the only two black people sitting here, that Lula Mae was an old black lady.
She was, and she was the coolest, nicest, most. I mean, the day that she passed was one of the saddest days of my life. Like, she'd been just in our family. She was a family member for years and years. Lived with us, so she was great. But that was just like, you did not want to be on her bad side. And she did the same thing my dad did, which we had 4 kids in 5 years, and so I was a year older than my brother. And my brother was just the biggest asshole. He would cause trouble all the time. To this day, he still is just that kid. And I would get blamed for it, like, constantly. So we'd both get a spanking, but they both gave me a couple extra because I was older and should have known better. And I'm like, nah, I had nothing to do with this. Oh, but that was always the rule. You were older and you should have known better. So there's a couple extra for you.
Yeah, I hated the you're older, so you should know better rule. I hated that. Roy?
Oh, well, mine is with my late grandmother. They are originally from the city of New York, but moved upstate to Rochester. And I used to go up there every summer, and in their house they had the way it was set up, it was like a TV room, and then the dining room were next to each other, and there was like a little, like the wall, there was like a kind of, it was opening through each. And so me and my cousin decided we were going to play volleyball between, that opening. And she had a whole bunch of plants and vases right there. And so we were playing, and of course, the plants and vases got knocked over, cracked. And my grandmother was a serious disciplinarian. But when she came home from work, she just was rather mild, and she was like, came and seen and kind of observed, and she was like, okay, well, come on, let's get you guys cleaned up. Let's get in the bath, So we go, we get the bath ready, we get in the bath, and she comes in and is like, we're ass naked at the time, get up out the bath. And she had like a extension cord. Like,
Yes, sir.
Wet bottoms.
Yeah.
Getting the extension cord. So it was like, we thought we was cool.
Brian's
so
over here thinking, this is child abuse.
Yeah, it was not a game. We never played volleyball ever again.
Ever again.
And she became Miss Grandma after that.
Well, she was already, she fooled us when she came in. It was just like, she was like, well, just go get
Kind of like what my dad did.
Yeah, right. We were like,
okay.
cool, let's just. Then she waited till we got nice and wet. Got us out the tub and gave us the
What,
business.
what he fails to tell you is that it was plugged in and it had a fray in it.
Woo.
Oh.
So that was my.
Yeah, I never did. I knew plenty of people who got extension cord whoopers. I never got one. Thank goodness. Thank goodness.
No, ours was a leather belt. Black leather belt folded in half. I think my dad actually still has it somewhere.
It's in the archives.
Yeah.
Sung on the wall to remind you, right?
Did he make
Yeah.
you go get it?
No, but once when we were in one of the houses we lived in when I was growing up, we had a willow tree in our backyard, and they used to make us go get a switch off the willow tree. No,
Yeah.
you better pick a good one. I better not have to go get it.
I mean, it's similar to what Dave was saying. It was like my dad would either make you go get the hairbrush or walk up, get the belt, and come back and go get the switch off the tree. And
Break
that
it
was
down.
the worst part. Then, because you knew it was coming. Oh, man, this is
My dad had that look. He had the look. It doesn't bother me now. Like, he'll try to do it, and I'll be like, "What?" But back in the day, it was like, "Dad's
Worked
looking
pretty
at
good.
me. Dad's looking at me."
I want to hear Brian. He's the youngest, and he came up in a generation where
Yeah, this would be
you
interesting.
spank me, I'm gonna turn you into services. You know, you're going to jail, Mom and Dad.
Yeah, you know, I grew up in a family that used the belt, which was not very common anymore, I think, when I was growing up.
What type of family?
That used the belt.
Yeah.
So my dad used the belt, but I don't think he ever actually used it on me. I have one other sibling, an older brother. He's 5 years older than I am. And anytime he would get in trouble, it would be grounded or get the belt. Well, he usually always got the belt and then grounded. But they would make sure that I was like very aware that he was getting, and then you hear the belt slap, like getting ready for it, and then you hear the wailing, and you're just like, yeah. They made sure that I was either watching it, seeing it happen, saying, don't do what he did. And so I feel like it was very psychological for me and more physical for my brother. And I'd say one of the toughest ones was I don't know how old I was. I'd been probably 7 or 8, and I got a handful of bottle rockets, which were sold in Oklahoma. They were not legal in Kansas, but we had them in Kansas, so I brought them across the border, and me and a buddy were lighting them. Sure enough, cop comes around the corner, so we book it over to my house across the alley, and cop comes and knocks on our door, and my mom answers. She's like, how may I help you? And he said, well, I think your son was shooting bottle rockets. And she turns and looks at me, with those mother death eyes, and she's like, well, you can go ahead and take him. Take him to jail. Of course, me as a kid, I'm just like, oh, I'm going to jail. Like, I started crying, and the cop gets me all the way, gets us up to the car, and then he comes back. I think he probably told me, he's like, okay, I can't actually take him to jail. And she's like, I know.
Right.
You got to scare him. So I was crying. I learned my lesson that way. So I feel like it was all psychological.
The cop played into that well.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's excellent.
You got to have a good one.
I got a few pretty funny ones, but just speaking of just kind of psychological mom stuff.
Oh.
Yeah. So I was, I don't know. I want to say 7 or 8, and it wasn't too old. And so my mom tells me we're going to the grocery store. So she tells me before we even get out of the car.
That was when they had cool toys.
Yeah, they're like the grocery stores actually had a toy aisle, and so she's telling me, and they had good toys. So, I'm not buying anything. I'm not buying any toys, so don't even ask me. And so and she said, if you act a fool in here, and to this day, if you act a fool in here, I'm gonna leave you here. And I'm like, yeah, okay. Well, in my mind, I'm thinking, yeah, okay, whatever. So I get in there, and we're walking around the store, and so finally, we come up the aisle to come around the corner to go to a different aisle. But we come up the toy aisle, and of course, I am mesmerized by the G.I. Joes, as most kids were at that time. I'm mesmerized, and then I, of course, wanted the G.I. Joe, and I wanted the G.I. Joe stupidly bad. And so then I start acting a fool for the G.I. Joe. And she's like, boy, I told you I ain't getting you no toys. And so then I decided to pretend that I was not a black child. I fell out and did a full tantrum in the floor, like it was cool. And I'm doing a full, I'm kicking and hitting the floor. And she was like, "Boy, if you don't get up on the floor, embarrass me," you know. So finally, I don't hear her talking to me anymore, and so it kind of dawns on me that I don't hear her. So and I get up and I'm looking around and I don't see her, and then it hits me: if you act a fool, I'm gonna leave you here. And so I'm like, no, she wouldn't leave me here. But I'm looking down all the aisles, and I'm frantic, and my eyes are huge, and I don't see her, and so then it hits me again. If you act a fool here, I'm gonna leave you here. I'm like, no, she wouldn't. So I run to the door and she's in the car, waiting for me to see her. And as soon as I come up, I go, "Mama!" And she takes off.
So now you're totally freaked.
Takes off. She bends the corner to the side of the grocery store, and she literally must have went around the block.
Right.
But I'm sitting on, there was a little bench outside the grocery store, and I'm sitting there and I'm freaking out. And she goes, basically, "Are you done? Did you get in the car?" And I was, and so of course I never did that one again. And when I was older, I was probably a teenager. If not a teenager, I was 12. If I wasn't a teenager yet, I was at my grandmother's house, and so my grandmother this day was annoyed. I don't know why she was annoyed. Still don't know why she was annoyed. But she told me, "Don't have none of these kids in my yard." So the next building over, so it's our building, a vacant lot, and another building, is my best friends, and they're good family friends on top of that, Derek and Tasha. So I play with Derek and Tasha every day, so I truly wasn't assuming she meant Derek and Tasha. I thought she meant the hoodlum kids across the street, because there was a ton of hoodlum kids across the street, and she didn't want the hoodlum kids in her yard. That's my assumption. So I'm sitting on the front stoop with Derek, not even really making a bunch of noise or anything, but I'm sitting up there and we're talking and whatever. And so my grandparents bought a 3-flat apartment building with their life savings. And so you can go around one side, which is kind of where everybody went around, or there was a long, narrow kind of blind side that you can go down on the other side, which you rarely went down that way just because you rarely did. And so this day, Grandma calls me from the blind side. And she goes, "Baby, come down here, help me do whatever. And I'm like, all right. So I go down the long blind side, and so I turn the corner, and she's around the corner with a broom held up like a Louisville Slugger. She swings to take my head off. And I duck, she hits the building, and I'm like, ah! And I break through the house, and now she's not a young woman. She catches me in the kitchen, and she's starting to wail on me, and I must have been screaming, "Nah, hell!" My grandpa come here. "What's going on here?" And he grabs her up, because he was like, he didn't know what the hell was going on. He grabs her up. And he goes, "Boy, get out of here." So I ran out the front door. And I grabbed Derek, who at the time had a jerry curl. And I literally grabbed him by the jerry curl, and I was like, "Come on, man, she crazy!" And we ran over to Derek's house and hid there until it got dark. And And so I remember when I came back, my grandmother, she just gave me that death look, because you know how my mom and my aunt can get that mean face. Mm-hmm. So they get it from my grandmother, who had the real mean face. So she just gave me the mean face, and I sat down and I just stayed quiet. But and the funny thing is, to that day, I had never gotten a whooping from my grandmother before. And I was disillusioned. I was like, what the hell? What the hell just happened to me? So, yeah.
So now you know how your mama has it.
Oh, man. So I definitely, I didn't get a lot of whoopings, but it seemed like the whoopings or the punishments were like, they were just, like my mom, she didn't whoop me a lot, but her thing was punishments, and she could stick to a punishment. Like, if I got a bad grade on my report card, like, I was grounded until the next report card.
Oh, I never noticed that.
Yeah, I did that.
And she could stick to it. Like, and of course I was a kid. I'd be trying to sneak out and watch TV, and like I'd be peeking around the side of the couch, and she wouldn't even look. She'd be like, "Get back in your room." And I would go back in my room and I'd be crying, because I could hear the TV, but all I could do was sit in my room and read. I was mad and hurt. But the funny thing is, which is why kind of the topic kind of came to mind, was, the things in your life that build character, and you never think of, like, kind of the whoopings or the punishments you got as a child building character. But I was just thinking, you really wouldn't be the person you are today if you were allowed to get away with the crap that you were trying to pull.
And that goes to the social thing that is today, when parents can't do those type of things.
Yeah.
Schools can't do those type of things.
Mm-hmm.
And you kind of have to wonder if there's some behavioral issues in some of the kids nowadays when you see their attitudes towards their elders.
I don't think there's any wonder about it.
No, because they don't. Which I'm sure Brian was too. We were raised to respect our elders, to say sir and ma'am and thank you, and holding doors and just being polite, and I still say aunt whatever,
Sure.
uncle whatever, because that's a sign of respect, and it just,
I would say
you don't have that now.
Well,
I do not believe that is true. I do not believe that everybody looks back at their own generation with the rose-colored glasses. I knew a lot of shitty kids when I was young.
I did too.
But I would say, and I read an interesting book, to your point, recently about, and I found this fairly fascinating, that it was a whole book written by a woman, and she said one of the biggest problems in the American education system is that up until probably 8th or 9th grade, the vast majority of your teachers are going to be women who are raising these little boys the way that they want boys to be instead of the way that boys really are.
Right.
So, like, try to get in a fight at recess and see what happens. Like, they stop that shit immediately.
Right.
They would let you fight it out for a little while, and I think you needed to.
Yeah.
And I think boys relate to the world so physically, and women relate to it so emotionally, especially at a younger age, that if you deny boys in particular the ability to experience the world physically, because I never felt like I got an unjust whooping. I felt like
everyone
had
was
one.
different.
But now you aren't allowed to.
That was the entire point of the book. Now you're not allowed to experience that at all. And so for what is natural for 5,000 years for boys to kind of figure it out physically, because that then relates to you mentally, and gives you a mental edge.
Still a problem today in the school system.
I agree.
Absolutely.
Very little male presence in the school.
Well,
Yeah,
and I hate to admit it, but you have to wonder why. Because it seems like, well, when I was in high school, one of my male teachers had an affair with one of the students. My son's one of his teachers had an affair with one of his students. I'm like,
the
you
lady
know,
now just got pregnant by an 8th grader. Did you hear about that?
It's
One
just
in
crazy
Oregon
to
a long
me.
time ago.
No, I think just like a week ago.
Oh, no,
a lady
they're-
Oh, wow.
in Houston, Texas she got pregnant by a 13-year-old.
And
She
I-
was
That's crazy.
pretty hot.
But as a dude, I find that everybody I know, and it's so weird to me the reverse. Like if some old guy is like creeping on a 13-year-old girl, I'm like, you're disgusting.
Yeah.
But like,
way around,
if
like-
I was hooking up with like a hot teacher, like sweet.
But that's what they're kind of
But
talking about.
but being the only female here, that grosses me out.
I
I'm
get it.
thinking,
I get it,
how
because
does a
all
teacher, how is a teacher even remotely interested in a 13-year-old boy?
I was exceptionally charming as a 13-year-old.
Well, you may be exceptionally charming, but you're not well developed at that age.
She's
So
helping him. Helping
Right.
that development process.
Exactly.
Helping in the maturation process.
I mean, yeah, this teacher, like, nobody heard about this story?
No, I missed this
Yeah,
story.
it's like this just happened like a week ago. Like
Wow.
in Houston, Texas.
wow.
She got pregnant by a 13-year-old. I mean, she was the.
But it's not a little different as a
She was
dude.
cool with it.
No,
Yeah.
you're putting
That's what's
no.
bothering
Yeah.
No,
It is not different. It
It's
is
completely different.
no. It should
Society
not.
sees it differently, I think.
I feel it's completely.
I don't think they
different.
see it as differently as they used to.
Well, I agree
She's a
with that.
pedophile. I'm sorry. If she got pregnant by a 13-year-old, she's a pedophile.
Yeah.
There's
I
no
don't
other
think
way
it
to
has
look
the
at it.
same emotional impact for guys as it does for women. I just
I
think the
don't
emotional
know
impact is
about that.
ridiculous.
I don't know about that. I think that it does something, maybe not the same as a female that age, but definitely something changes in you as a boy, I would think. You know,
I don't think-
I mean, he was trying to make
you're
that same
not-
thing happen with kids his age.
I don't
Yeah,
think
but
it's the
that's-
same, but I bet it's just as tragic.
I don't know.
I mean, I could definitely see that you
Oh,
know,
no,
you
it's
become,
a different
you know,
experience.
more,
jaded and more.
yeah, more promiscuous or
Yeah.
more, you know,
Well,
cause
I
like
think
you
this will happen regardless. I
It's
mean,
very hard for me to
Yeah.
do, but I just think
Well, we know
That's-
you're an exception to
you're a
the
special
rule.
case because
No,
you're
what I mean is
exceptionally
that-
charming.
but- you know-
it's a different physical act. I mean, it's not the same thing.
The bottom line question is, where did all this come from? You know, did this come out of our education system? You know, where did this thing come from?
How does it come out of our
that you-
education
that you
system, though?
That you couldn't punish your child all the
This is teachers.
Oh.
This is teachers or parents suing teachers in schools. You know, I mean, my dad gave the principal like a written note, go if he acts up, whoop his
Yeah,
ass.
well-
He had a pad on the wall with
Well,
holes
back
cut
at
in
back
it,
when
and
I was in
that
school,
fine. Gave him
same
a
as
note saying
you,
can't.
Yeah.
we had to. My parents signed a waiver saying yes, you could do corporal punishment,
Yep.
Yeah.
which is what they called it, to our child. But they still called. This is what happened. We're going to give her a SWAT. Okay.
So
Yeah,
my
that's
brother
okay.
is a teacher, my mom's a teacher, my brother's wife is a counselor. They all work at the same high school that I went to high school in. And they all say there are two types of parents. There's the parent that says, my child can do no wrong, they're an angel. So if anything goes wrong, it is the school's fault, it's the teacher's fault, it's the principal's fault. Then you have the other parents that say, yep, I believe they probably did that, I hope you punished them. And it's just completely black and white. But then teachers are instructed that they can't even use red ink anymore because it's too damaging. It's the
Psychologically,
punishment.
yeah.
It's like, when you tell me they actually got the problem wrong, I should be able to tell them they got it wrong.
Yeah,
not
It's the
about
same way they
everyone's
don't keep
a winner.
score in sports anymore.
Yeah.
I know.
So
I've
it's-
never agreed with that either.
kidding
I
me?
think.
Yeah.
I think once you're old enough to understand win-lose, like I understand a bunch of 5-year-olds out there, they shouldn't, it's
They're
just
keeping-
getting
they're
them
keeping
used
score.
to it.
They're
They
keeping
do.
They
score.
give us
They're
I'm
ahead.
coaching my son.
They're
My
already know.
son, he's 5, will be 6 in July.
But
And
you,
I was coaching. I was
to-
coaching his games over the winter, and they kept coming back like it's 2-0. Even though they weren't keeping score, they were like, Dad, we won. I was like, yeah, y'all won. You know what I'm saying? So even though the score wasn't up there,
I
But they
think
wanna
that
know-
But they
I
know
think
what
that
it is.
Who's winning?
kids-
And I think
and I was
learning,
like,
You're
yeah,
not a-
y'all won.
learning to lose is equally as important as learning to win.
Yes, because you have to understand that you're not going to win everything.
But you got to experience. You got to be able. What we say.
You-
You got to be.
they don't know
you gotta
how
be a
to.
good. You got to be a good loser in order to be a great winner.
Yeah,
Right,
well, and
right.
kids
you
nowadays
have to
don't
hate losing.
understand how to lose. They don't. It's
We have to hate losing, but you still have to. That's part of the game. So
Yeah.
you have to.
I'm not saying don't be nice afterwards. I'm just saying learn to hate. losing.
Yeah, I mean, you learn, but that's how you learn
Sure.
sportsmanship. I mean, you're going to lose sometimes, and you know how to
the
lose
loss
with
inspires
grace.
you to want to win.
But
Yeah.
that also goes back.
This is disgusting.
My whole life, to where I've gotten from where I was such a failure to where I am a success now, is what did I learn from it? I learned from my successes? No, I learned from my failures.
Yeah. You definitely learn more from your
That's what you
failures than
learn
your
from
successes.
is your failures. You don't become successful by learning from your successes. You become successful by learning from your failures.
Yeah, like, so
And
don't do that
That
again.
whole idea has gotten away
Yeah.
from it.
Yeah.
It
That-
did start, I think it really started with your parents aren't allowed to touch you, your parents aren't allowed to do,
They started in the schools,
education
weren't allowed
in
to
the
touch you,
school.
then at home.
Right, and
Yeah.
that was my point, is I feel like
And,
that's
and
all
somehow
tied back to
that,
punishment. It's
yeah,
all tied back to
somehow
punishment.
that translated into, you can do whatever you want, and your parents can't say anything to you.
Now the only punishment there is I'm taking away your technology. That's like the only thing that I
That you
Well,
can.
my kids, they can't play technology except on the weekends.
Well,
They
here's, in my opinion, this is a
Good
perfect
father.
example. This perfect example. Let's look at what happened at the University of Missouri. They had the protest, I want my safe space. The university totally capitulated to them. And said, okay, cool, we're gonna fire these people. You got what you wanted.
Well, that's because of the football
Now,
program, though.
And then the football did to it, but they also, there was a whole lot.
The football program
Whole lot
wasn't
of factors,
involved.
there's a whole lot of factors
That wouldn't
involved.
escalate so quick, though.
That was done totally wrong. So now their enrollment's off, they got a deficit of $33 million because they got 1,400 students less in the freshman class coming in than they used to have.
Yeah.
What does that tell you? The inmates are running the asylum.
Well,
As a business owner,
you don't get to the root of the problem. You solve the surface and you put a Band-Aid on it, and it never gets fixed.
as a business owner, I do not run a democracy. It is a dictatorship. That doesn't mean that I don't get input from my people and I don't listen to my people. I value them greatly. But the final decisions are mine.
Yeah.
And my company will succeed or fail by my decisions.
Exactly.
Period.
Yeah.
Well, universities and school systems are the same way. The people running them have to make the decisions, and they will succeed or fail by their good or bad decisions. And it's really, truly that simple.
Yeah.
And when you make it to where everybody can rule any which way, but that's anarchy.
Well,
It doesn't work.
So
it never will.
one time my son, when he was in high school, I think he was probably a sophomore, a teacher, this girl was being really shitty to him, and and she was like, it's basically, she was telling him it's that time of the month or whatever, and I'm gonna be a bitch about it and blah blah blah. And he commented on that. Well, the teacher heard his comment, but not what she had said to him. So he had to go through sexual harassment, watch a video, an hour-long video on sexual harassment, because he replied to something a girl said to him. To me, you're losing something because you're not teaching both sides when it's right and wrong. You're not teaching parents and school what's appropriate. It's just a bunch of crap.
I can relate to business again that way.
Mm-hmm.
Most important thing I do as a businessman, a lot of times you have an odd shit phone call and you kind of know what's coming. I let it go to voicemail. The reason I let it go to voicemail is because I want to listen to it. I want to hear the tone of the person that's pissed at me and hear where it's going, and then I want to weigh it out both ways. And maybe I want to call this person first and get that side of the story. I want to call this person over and get that side of the story before I make a decision back to the other person. You have to evaluate that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You just can't be one-sided, boom, right there, and that's your decision. Generally, when I've done that, I step on my toes bad.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Definitely.
that happens all the time.
Yeah. So before we go down the rabbit hole with it, as I like to say, I think we've stumbled upon something that could definitely be a great podcast for the future. But I do want to say this before I wrap up, because I think we were talking about education and all of and kind of the ramifications how discipline or lack thereof, can affect, kind of life as you go forward. But, I think it goes all the way up to the way that our government is being ran currently. It's like you say, at a certain point, out there in podcast land, I think at a certain point, the inmates wind up running the asylum. The person that you elect to be the president doesn't actually have enough teeth in his powers to be able to make the correct decisions, because there's so many other hands in the pot telling them, what decisions they think, and on either side, are a bad idea. Instead of, let me see what the issue is, let me talk to both sides, and let me make a decision, because that's what you elected me to do. So I'm going to leave that as some food for thought as we go to the toast that started this off for me. And I end this podcast in the way I always end podcasts. To good times with good people.